It was the talk of the town yesterday. I did not really bite on this too much, but I think it's a good teachable moment for the rest of us. Alex Jurado, voice of reason. Recently, he was on the Matt Fradd show where he and Matt daydreamed about excommunicating Taylor Marshall. Perhaps I could be thrown into that category if they got their way. I don't know. But unfortunately, it broke yesterday. Allegedly, he's been involved in some grooming of young women, text-related grooming. I don't know if this is true. There is a whole thread with screenshots. I did not go read those things. I saw samples posted on X, but I did not go for the whole treasure trove of them. I don't intend to. Apparently, he's been scrubbed from Catholic Answers. Catholic speakers also scrubbed him from their website. And I haven't heard a word from him on this one way or the other, either way. And yesterday, the Avoiding Babylon crew were talking about it on their feed. Well, Alex Jurado.
And it's only a matter of time before I say something stupid or do something stupid just because I'm stupid. And I scandalize everybody.
Why is he still online? Come on.
I think it's cognitive dissonance.
I think if anything else, and I don't know if it's true. You let me know, but I didn't go looking through the treasure trove, but I was told that it was pretty disgusting what was in there and inappropriate. And for his sake, I hope it's not true. I hope he defends himself. But if it is true, I think it's a teachable moment for the rest of us.
So as near as I can figure, I didn't dive too deeply into this, but just to explain for everyone what exactly is going on. Basically, people have lots of screenshots of conversations he has had with young women. One of them is allegedly with a woman who was 14, but that incident was several years ago. I think it's not certain when the date is, and it's possible he was also a minor at the time because he started doing, what's the word? Apologetic stuff like at 16 or something like that, he claims. So that one's from quite a long time ago. But many of the screenshots are very recent, as in he's been going around being a, Catholic apologist and then using those connections and that, kind of minor celebrity to basically, it's not really grooming, it's seduction is what I said in the chat. Most of this is an issue of him seducing young women who came to hear him speak or whatever like that at these conferences and things. I'm not sure to what extent those relationships went on, but basically there's a lot of screenshots of texts with some, at least somewhat explicit content and just very, very highly inappropriate at the very least. Basically, after going on Matt Fradd's show and saying, I don't think I'm called to marriage, I think I'm called to the single life, my apostolate, right, this, that, the other, which is already a red flag. Basically, he's kind of just been playing the field using his minor celebrity to get girls, so to speak. Basically, a Catholic rock star type of attitude. So that's the extent of it. Again, the one incident that is allegedly him texting and grooming, quote unquote, a 14-year-old girl, as far as I can tell, is from quite a long time ago, and we're not sure even if he was, whether he was a legal adult, making that illegal behavior. If that was not, that was basically just two teenagers being stupid. Then all the other incidents are not necessarily illegal. They're just, immoral.
Maybe inappropriate.
So, highly inappropriate. I mean, the allegations are that he has actually followed through and been, sleeping around basically type of thing. So, there's no definitive details here, but there is a lot of screenshot evidence of conversations apparently. The issue here is that, or not the issue, but there's a lot of issues going on here. A lot of opportunities for conversation. But one thing that's interesting is it's just like, why make this? If there was a legal behavior, that shouldn't be just like published out here like that. That's something that should be taken to authorities. If there was a legal behavior, and if it's just immoral behavior, there's a responsibility to try and correct that with him in private first. And there doesn't seem to be any.
I think the guy who has collected all of these screenshots
did he try that?
Them is a anti-Catholic Protestant.
Okay, well there you go.
So I doubt that person has Alex's soul in his intentions.
Yep, exactly.
I think he's just trying to harm
Yep.
Alex Jurado at that point.
And this is harmful to Catholics in general. It's a scandalous issue. You've got someone who's claiming to speak, and this is a big issue when you've got this is something we were talking. Who was I talking about? But basically, you've got Flying Tigers. The women, they're young. They were around his age. Like, he's pretty young too. The one incident is with allegedly with a 14-year-old, and that one again could be seriously illegal. But for the most part, these are women who are not that much younger than him. This is an issue just of a guy using his celebrity to get young women. Like, they're not blameless in that. They chose to be to.
You're saying they're the Bathshebas?
They made no, I'm not saying they seduced him.
Watching me bathe while I'm out here in the open air in front of everyone?
No,
okay.
But if they're out chasing a young single Catholic influencer, and willing to do that, like, they have some culpability.
Well, they're young
in
and
that
impressionable.
too.
Young people
Exactly.
do dumb things.
Yes, exactly.
This is why virtue has
really
to be
dumb things,
ingrained in them from an early age.
Exactly,
right?
and why they need to be under the authority. I mean, if
I'm not mistaken, one of the girls was actually like trying to debate him, or not debate him, but like say, hey, she was trying to say, I want to pursue marriage and virtue and not sin, and sort of really disappointed in him because he was pressuring her in that way. So I did not read all the screenshots. I don't want to read all those screenshots. I'm not interested to know all the dirty details.
Yep.
I don't know the dirty details of Hunter Biden's exploits.
Yeah.
Don't want to know. Thank you, but no thank you. I just think it's a teachable moment for the rest of us to say, do you really understand and know your boundaries? There was a great conversation yesterday on the Avoiding Babylon podcast about all of this and talking about the celebrity pressure and all of that.
Yep.
And if you're looking for the approval of the world, then you're going to be faced with a lot of temptations.
Yep.
And again, this is why you gotta be very clear in your own mind who exactly you are, what you believe in and what you don't believe in. Whether you are a public-facing person or not, I don't think it matters. I think the process and the procedure is the same. There may be different strategies for public-facing people, but at the end of the day, you have to decide exactly who you are and what you believe and where your boundaries are and what you will do when you are faced with that temptation. You've got to know that you're going to walk away. So you're not, and I've shared this before, this anecdotal story, but Father Sam Medley of the Salts told me that the founder of that community, when he was young in the community, brought him together and just said, hey, decide right here today, right now, decide for yourself whether or not you are going to be prepared to be a martyr for the faith. Can they chop your head off? Are you okay with that? Or will you be at peace? And he says the reason why is because if that day should ever come, you won't be stressed about it. You won't be freaked out. You won't be anxious. You will be at peace. And I think that technique is exactly what I wrote about in my book, and it's good for all of us. You know right now what you will do when those bullets start flying, and then you will be more at peace and you'll be more calm and prepared to handle those temptations than just simply hope, in that emotional moment to be caught up when that dopamine is rushing in your head and riding through your whole body like a surfer on a wave, as Carol Wojtyla wrote in Love and Responsibility. And then you just give yourself over to it.
And here's where the nature of what he does as a career plays a role here, because if this was a young pop star or a young just social media influencer who went around telling people, oh, you should work out more, or here's how you build your Instagram career, like type of thing.
So you build your lats.
Would we be shocked if even if he was nominally Catholic, but his career was entirely centered around something else, something not specifically Catholic? Would we be shocked that he was, basically?
Well, that's why I brought him up at all today.
Yes,
because we were talking about Lily Allen, the secular pop star who was raised terribly.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it happens in our own Catholic homes.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is part of this. Part of this thing is that he is not. He has no obligation to celibacy. He's more than welcome to try and find a wife. To try and to talk to girls and to be seeking a future spouse. That's legitimate. Like you said, that one girl, that was her focus. She was like, oh, maybe I'm actually this is I fell in love with this Catholic influencer guy and this is great. And that's different from, again, the one grooming allegation thing, which again is not. I'm not sure if there's the details of that have been confirmed. And there is another figure, Catholic Instagram figure in this, which looks like it was maybe even kind of worse situations. But just specifically talking about voice of reason here, Alex Jurado. We shouldn't be surprised that he, is talking to girls because he's a layman. He's a single male layman who's trying to be a lay minister, apostolate preacher type deal, apologist, whatever. He has no like oversight. He has no vows that he's taken. He has no obligation to never speak to women. We shouldn't be shocked by that. And the extent to which he's kind of just, again, it seems like he's just playing the field and he's talking about, I don't think I'm called to get married. Like, really, dude? That's where you're seeing
Pause,
hypocritical activity
pause.
here.
We interrupt this point you're making to chase this rabbit hole here.
Sure.
Are you saying you don't believe that there's a single state, single not consecrated to religious life, single not in the priesthood, but
not really.
just lay single?
Not really. I think that's just, if it happens, that's unfortunate, but no one's actually called to that. That's my personal opinion on that. I think there are situations where that just doesn't work out and you end up single. But I don't think anyone's actually called to do that.
Douglas brings up Father Carlos Martins. Father Carlos is a different case. He wasn't grooming anybody. He wasn't texting anybody.
No.
He picked up a hair to make a point in a talk he was giving off of a young girl's shoulders, just to talk about this one little hair and that got him in big trouble. I would say I would not put him in the same category at all. I don't know. He has obviously gone very quiet. He is obedient to his superiors. So if they told him to sit down and be quiet, that's what he's doing. I don't know if he'll ever be public again. I guess time will tell. But it definitely is a problem for priests because of the celebrity element.
Yes.
They have to go above and beyond to manage that process in order to safeguard themselves. When I used to run Catholic conferences, big conferences, and I'd hire all these speakers, a lot of times when it came to priests, some priests would travel alone. Other priests, they were required, especially like on the religious side of things, if we were going to hire said famous priest that everybody likes and loves, we'd also had to bring in somebody else because they were required to travel in pairs in order to have like that check and balance in their life. So in other words, the community came with them, right? They weren't out in a hotel room all by themselves, that kind of thing. So it can be dangerous. It can be very difficult. And I would say it's worse for priests because they're a bigger target, right? And I helped to perpetuate the monster that became Father John Carapi. I was definitely a part of the problem in that regard because I was part of the system that hired him, promoted him, turned the cheek when his ego was unchecked and out of control, when his demands were absolutely unrealistic and not virtuous. And we just went along with it. Why? Because we wanted to put butts in seats. Because we wanted to sell out our conferences. That's why we did that. So I definitely helped to perpetuate his downfall. And for that, I repent. And I pray for Father John Carapi, to live out the rest of his days, prayer, fasting, and penance. And he has been. Right? When's the last time you heard from him? Years. Praise be to God. Praise be to God. So it is a difficult thing. And lay folk are no different. So when lay folk put themselves into the spotlight, and as I think you said, Jake, a minute ago, without the accountability, without the checks and balances, man, it can be very slippery. It can be very, very slippery. Yeah, I thought one of the downsides of the Father Crappie story is we lost a powerful communicator, didn't we? Like that's the tragedy. It's one of the tragedies of that scenario. Is one, his own priesthood was lost. And he was a powerful communicator. He brought a lot of people out because of his capability to tell stories and to keep you gripped, And that's part of the tragedy of it all.
Yeah, no problem, Stephen S. on that explanation. I get what you're saying, but my point is that no one's actually called to be single. Sometimes you just end up not finding the person that you're supposed to be with, and you don't have a vocation.
Or sometimes you blow it.
Yeah, you might blow it, or they blew it, and you just never made that connection. Like what I'm saying is that's a cross to bear, but that's not. People shouldn't act, especially when they. I went through a time before I met my fiance. I went through a brief time where I was like, oh, maybe I'm just not meant to get married. I've been through some failures here of relationships, and I couldn't figure this out. And then like a month later, I matched with my fiance on Catholic Match, and now we're engaged. I had this moment of thinking, maybe I'm just not called to be married, type of thing. And that was part of what helped me think, look, it's just, and other people who are much wiser than I have written about this and explained it better. But basically, you're called to either marry the church or marry someone else. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes the vocation doesn't work. There are people who had vocations and they were destroyed by, a bad seminary or by a bad advisor or anything like that. And that doesn't mean that they never had that vocation. That doesn't mean that God's plan was that they should fall for that vocation, type of thing. But it's no one's called from the get-go to be single and just be out in the world as a single person. Sometimes that's just the cross that someone has to bear.
It's just not by design.
Yeah, it's just not by design. And just like someone said, what about people who are same-sex attracted or whatever? That's not a natural state of being. That's not part of God's design, is that you should be attracted to the other sex. So that's not really, there's a cross that you might have to bear with that, but you're not called to be same-sex attracted and then stay single. In that
Jesus
sense,
made it very clear, those eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of God, the priesthood, religious life, their purpose was very, very specific. It wasn't laity. So.
Yeah. And
the design is marriage.
And this goes into the whole issue of lay apologetics. A lot of people online are taking this opportunity to say this is why we're in such a touchy time where we have it feels like we have so few good religious to go to. And we prop up lay apologetics and lay apologists as authorities beyond what they are, called to and capable of doing. It used to be that only a deacon could proclaim the gospel.
So I find this fascinating. I find this fascinating from a modernist perspective.
Yeah.
You have this whole Alex Jurado and Matt Fradd, on the podcast, joking about who they'd excommunicate and punish and discipline, forcing people maybe, and I could kind of see myself in a minor way in this category, having to make, I promise never to, criticize the Pope or whatever, making public statements and all this stuff. They were having a good laugh at that while they smoked their cigars. And yet, I don't call Paul VI saint all that often, because I'm a little like, why are we canonizing every post-Vatican II saint as though they were like, whatever. Anyway, but they would, right? Like that's their team, St. Paul VI. St. Paul VI wrote Evangelii Nunciandi. And if you read Evangelii Nunciandi, which I have several times, St. Paul VI makes it very clear whose job is what. Stay in your lane. That's Paul VI, Evangelii Nunciandi. It ain't the lay person's job to do that work. That belongs to the hierarchy of the church. That belongs to the priesthood. My job as a lay person, according to St. Paul VI and Evangelii Nunciandi, is to what? Be formed by the church, take that apologetics, take that catechesis from the clergy, be formed by it, and now that I'm a well-formed Catholic, go out into the public sphere and dominate. Bring the glory of God to the public sphere. Where? To education, to media, to politics, to culture, to art, to all the spheres in the secular world. So Paul VI makes it clear that we're to stay in our lane. And I just find it very, very curious how the same team that would be happy to criticize me, Pope-splain, and criticize me for being a Pope critic, will ignore Pope Paul VI, Pope St. Paul VI, in his own instruction, by usurping the duty of the clergy. Like that's, I don't know. I find that bizarre.
I like what I saw. I saw one of the I think it was it was Avoiding Babylon who made this. I can't remember who did, but one of them made this point on X sometime last night. I think that we're not apologists. We're not preachers. We're not ministers. We're entertainers. We're here to entertain.
Yes,
I was like, yes, you're court jesters like me. You're here to
100%.
You're here to just make people.
My
make
job
them laugh.
is to be a talking head. I'm a
Don't you know everyone wants to laugh?
Yeah, that's
My
literally
grandpa
my
said,
job.
go out and tell them a joke. But give it plenty.
Hey,
of hope.
Gregory brings up an excellent, scary point, though, and boy, this is This is definitely a scary thing for
Uh-oh.
somebody in my shoes. Gregory says, what would happen if all of a sudden someone made up allegations against you, Joe? Some people would believe it no matter what you said. Dangerous world for Christians. 100% true. You know, the other day I was watching Tucker Carlson interview the guy from, he used to work at The Hill. Now he doesn't work there anymore. I forget his name now. Anyway, and Tucker said, you know, I don't have a computer. He goes, I don't own a computer because if they want to frame you, they will dump child porn on your computer to frame you. And that reminded me, you remember the priest in the FSSP priest who wrote Nothing Superfluous?
Father Jackson.
Father Jackson. You remember that story about Father Jackson when it broke several years back now? And I got into a conversation with Christine Niles over it. And there was a whole dust up between trads and non-trads and that kind of thing. And all I ever said was, hey, listen, it's possible to dump junk on his computer and frame him. I said, but at the end of the day, if he's guilty, I want him in prison. If he's not guilty, I want his reputation restored to him. Mm-hmm. But then I said, but that ain't going to happen, is it? Even if he's not guilty. Like the ship has sailed. And I think, Gregory, you're right. I think even if they were false allegations levied against me, would my reputation ever be fully restored if that were to be true? If that came out that I was being framed or whatever? No, the answer is no. And that would be a burden. That would be a cross that I would have to bear with humility because I would be humbled. It would be humiliating. But worse would be the effect on my family, the effect on my wife in particular, but let alone my children, who as they become adults would become more aware of those kinds of things. It is incredibly a serious matter, but at the end of the day, this is part of the reason why you have to know your boundaries. Don't give them a reason. Don't give them, as I had a master sergeant in my command once tell me, because I was a young, stupid kid, I've made plenty of very terrible choices in my life, and I'm so grateful for mercy. I'm so grateful for forgiveness and so grateful for second chances, which is why I say pray for Alex Jurado. And the priest in Toulouse, France, who's now the chancellor there, even though I don't think he ought to be chancellor. He should be forgiven, but not chancellor. Anyway, he once said to me, boy, I'm going to give you all the rope you need to hang yourself. You know, don't give them the rope with which you will hang yourself. So you got to know your boundaries. You got to know where your weak spots are, and you got to fortify your position. So if you know where there's a weakness in your wall, fortify it. You got to be honest about it. You got to make those tough choices, right? Do you know your limits? Do you know your boundaries? Something I wrote, I want to grab my book. My book isn't here because I usually give them all away and I don't print them anymore. I don't even try to sell the book anymore. But I wrote a book in 2014 on overcoming pornography addiction. And part of what I wrote in that book was based on my experience in the United States Marine Corps. When you get shot at, you don't wait until the bullet's a snap, because you always hear a snap. The bullet snaps because it's breaking the sound barrier, so you hear a snap. And you don't wait until then when you go, you know what, hey, what should we do? What do you think you got? Guy, all in favor, show of hands, how many people want to duck? Raise your hand. Anyone? How many people want to run? Raise your hand. Okay. How many people want to counterattack? Get online assault through. Okay, by majority vote, that's what we're going to do. That's not, the Marine Corps beats it into you. This is why Full Metal Jacket is so masterful in its propaganda, because, I got to say, when I went to boot camp, I had my Full Metal Jacket experience. Like we experienced that level of intensity, and I would say many times it was worse. Like you're doing hand-to-hand combat drills in a pit, in a sand pit, and there was like a walkway, like a elevated platform, and these DIs would pace up and down there as you're choking some dude out or trying to break his arm. In these hand-to-hand combat drills, he's rattling off statistics from Vietnam. In Vietnam, every Marine at a fire base was responsible to kill 30 North Vietnamese Viet Cong soldiers. And if you died without permission, your buddy would have to kill 60. I mean, he would just start rattling all this stuff off, you know? Like, you know, it's, so, and you're a young, impressionable man. You're just like, whew. So I use that experience to write in my book, you know, to give the metaphor, the analogy, so to speak. Do you know where your boundaries are? Do you know where your enemies are? Do you know your enemies' capabilities? Do you know what their tactics are? Do you know how they intend to kill you? And if the answer to that question is yes, then you have everything you need to be more successful and to win the battle, right? So if this phone is the gateway to hell for you, should you have the phone? Or at the very least, couldn't you say you should do what you need to do? Because like, let's just say, like me, I have to work. I need computers, I need phones, I need to be able to communicate, to research, and do all these things. Well, then do I have the boundaries so that I'm not going to cross those boundaries, right? Do I have the tools, the assets, the necessary things in order to set those boundaries up and to respect them? But even if I didn't have any guardrails, St. Paul says it was written on our heart. And I know better. That's why we have a conscience that speaks to us, that guilts us. If we feel guilt for a reason, that guilt is a gift from God to keep you in check. Do you know where your checks are? Do you know where your boundaries are? And do you respect them? If you don't know who you are, then you're going to wait until the bullets fly. And by then it's too late, because if you're trying to make important decisions when someone is trying to kill you on what you're going to do in that scenario, it is too late. You are dead. It's just a matter of seconds. But if you have decided before that ever happens who you are, whose you are, and what you're going to do when those bullets fly, how you're going to react, and then you discipline yourself to practice that, to be disciplined when those bullets fly, you will react appropriately, which is why I called my book Muscle Memory, because this is what firefighters do. This is what police officers do. Medics do this. I mean, everyone in the world does this in most disciplines, to react based on discipline and training. But how many men, maybe similar to Alex Jurado, the voice of reason, have allowed themselves to fall prey to that temptation because they weren't prepared, because they didn't really know and understand and make clear distinctions in their mind where those boundaries are. I said this to my son the other day, my 18-year-old. What kind of man do you want to be? It's time for you to make that choice. It's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. Don't make your parents do this for you. You're 18. It's time for you to decide what kind of man you're going to be, so that when you are all alone, surrounded by the peer pressure of your environment, and they're doing things that you don't believe in because it's not the kind of man you are you prepared to stand there and say, nope, I'm not doing that? I think too many men and women have never done that. They've never made those decisions. They've never thought and contemplated what kind of person they actually are and what they will and will not do, where those boundaries are. And then they wait until things get really bad, and then they fall prey to those temptations, and it just gets worse from there. Flying Tigers, good morning to you. Says Matt Fradd's interview with Alex Jurado, Voice of Reason, may yank that interview soon. Whether he does, listen, the evidence looks very incriminating. I'm not going to lie. Do I know its veracity? Absolutely not. I have no means of verifying one way or the other the veracity of the evidence stacked now against Alex Jurado, nor has he come out one way or the other. As far as I can tell, has anybody heard any statements from him at all? Please, if so, tell me, because I have not seen it. So I'm praying for him, obviously. It looks very incriminating. I couldn't tell you one way or the other. The internet is never gone. The interview is gone, you're saying, Janice. Okay, well, the internet is forever. And the Wayback Machine has the receipts. But whatever. I was going to say, I'm not a big cancel culture kind of guy, unless it's Marco Rupnik. But no, I say this to say, I would not pressure Matt Fradd to take the interview down necessarily. If he chose to take it down, fine, good enough. But I wouldn't pressure him to take it down. Do I want Alex Jurado working in professional circles? No, probably not. Do I want him to, be so canceled, so ostracized that he can never work again? No, absolutely not. He needs to repent if he's guilty of this. do penance. And that was the gospel today, was it not? Woe unto you, Chorazin. It'd be better for Tyre and Sidon than it would be for you in the day, because I did many miracles in front of you. They would put on sackcloth and ashes and do penance. The answer for all of us is do penance. I've committed many horrible sins in my life to which I have to do penance. There is a forgiveness. There is a tomorrow. There is another chance. But just because we give someone another chance does not mean we just act naive and imprudent in all of that. So Alex probably ought not to be in situations where he's hanging out with young ladies. Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.